Let me first unmute. It works much better that way. So welcome back, everybody, to this second part of the CIONEXT conference, where we will be discussing how we navigate the perfect storm with 5 top finalists of the government panel. Niels, what did we, in a nutshell, how did you digest the first panel?
It's just, for me, it's amazing how digital leadership is so critical for these organizations to navigate all of these crises, and it's affecting organizations in so many different ways. And so prioritization became a key theme in the previous panel. We'll see about this panel.
Yeah, a very, very different panel, I can imagine. I mean, we're coming from a super commercial environment to a government environment. Although several of you have commercial backgrounds as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how we can navigate the perfect storm and how government organizations have a double role. I mean, they need to help society and their countries to navigate the storm. They need to help their own organizations to help navigate the storm. And we can talk about how the IT departments, the IT organizations navigate this storm as well. But let's first start with a round of introductions. Maybe Laurens, if you want to take it first, if you can tell us who you are, what do you do, and if you would not have become the CIO of the central Dutch government, what was your dream when you were a child? Would you have become the new Johan Cruijff? What was your dream back then?
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Hendrik, for this question. And first, I'd like to thank you. I'm honored to be here in this, and it's nice to see Niels back again. I think it has been more than 10 years since we met. I think it was in Brussels. So it's very nice to be in a different position, but in this on this panel. Well, yeah. The CIO central government in the Netherlands has a threefold responsibility. The first is to promote and foster and shape the right use of information services and IT within the central government, which is all ministries. We have 12 of them, and all their constituting organizational elements like the tax services, police, social security services, education, finance service, and so on. I think altogether it's about 130,000 civil servants working at central government level. The next is to promulgate this by drafting policies on cloud, lifecycle management, and so on, all topics we have in IT, and implement these policies and frameworks. And the last element is to coordinate the implementation, but also to monitor the right use of the implementation, the standards, the things we agreed upon, and report this back to Parliament and to the public, because it's a major task of the CIO central government. So it's a coordinated position. This is not something I dreamt of when I was a child, of course, because I think that the job simply didn't exist. And I had it was a difficult decision on what to pursue in my life. So I end up being a military. I started in the Navy. But if you ask me where my heart lies, it is a bit like in the former panel. I would be a musician. I play piano and saxophone, and I love playing it, and now it's a hobby. But that would be maybe a possible employment if I would not pursue the military and then the IT career. So
Okay, I think we need to start thinking about creating a band with our CIONET.
Maybe that's a good idea. We have a director, or Johan, and I can play a bit of piano, so maybe.
Okay. Thank you so much for that introduction, Lawrence. Piotr, if you could unmute and tell us a little bit more about yourself, your organization, and what was your dream when you were younger?
Okay, thank you, Hendrik. Hello, everyone in the front of the screens. I work in the full name of company is Miejskie Przedsiębiorstwo Wodociągów i Kanalizacji in Wrocław, in Poland. So it means a municipal water and wastewater company. So we supply water and collect sewage in a nutshell. In our company, I combine two roles, the CIO and the CIFO function. So it means that I'm having an extremely difficult time right now, but I have two extra teams in my area. So this is PMO, Project Management Office, and Digital Excellence team. So they support me with many digital initiatives. So in recent years, we have implemented a lot of new technologies in our company, and we are probably the only company in Poland that has been awarded the Digital Excellence Award twice. So this is a local Poland CIONET community. And when COVID appeared, because previous speakers talked about that, it took us a weekend, just 1 weekend, to switch to full work. And current projects focus on the use of artificial intelligence in process optimization, and we implement the largest IoT network that uses LoRaWAN protocol in Poland, and it will help us to minimize water losses because water is crucial right now. We know about that, everyone. And the question, if I wasn't on this position, I would definitely be an entrepreneur because I love to develop new products and services that bring value to others. And I also do it in our company, but I will talk about that a little bit later, I hope.
Okay, thank you so much, Piotr, for that. Let's go to Andalusia, to Malaga, I can imagine, right? So we were in Amsterdam or in Den Haag. We went to Wrocław, and now we are in Andalusia, the beautiful south of Spain. Tell us all about yourself, your organization, and your childhood dreams.
Hendrik, thank you very much, Niels, to have the opportunity to participate in this panel. I am Raul. I am the Managing Director of the Andalusia Digital Agency that has been created with the mission of leading the digital transformation of Andalusia. And Andalusia has more than 8.5 million inhabitants. And the regional government has competencies in areas such as education, health, justice, and social services, for example. And our main objective is to improve the provision of public services through the use of digital tools. I am telecommunications engineering from the University of Malaga. I began in the public sector in the municipal sphere. I was the managing director of the water and waste treatment companies at my city home. I also held the presidency of another company to dedicate to the management of home health. Later, I was the vice presidency of the council municipal IT center. 2019, I made the leap to the regional politics, occupying the managing director of the Agriculture and Fisheries Management Agency, where I applied innovation and technology to modernize and began a transformation of the primary sector in my region. And from the last year, I was the managing director of the Digital Agency of Andalusia. And when I was a child, I want to be engineer. And if I want to choose again, I think I will repeat. I repeat it to be engineer. But as Lawrence, I would like to play the piano. as my son and my daughter too, because I think I have to do for the future. It's never. We have the. I expect I will have the opportunity to play the piano too. So I don't do it for forgotten.
Okay. Thank you so much, Raul from Malaga. Jan from Brussels, I can imagine. How are you today? Please introduce yourself, VDIB, and what was the dream of small Jan 20 years ago or so?
Thank you, Hendrik. Good afternoon to everybody in the call. Good afternoon, Hendrik, CIONET. Thank you for being here. I'm honored to be part of the list of the finalists. I have a background indeed in the private sector. I'm now 4 years the Chief Information Officer of VDAB, which is the Flemish Public Employment Service. And okay, what is my role as being part of the board of VDAB? We do work every day very hard to try to get as many people to work. That's basically the core mission. And that's why we do our projects and our digitalization efforts, because digital is, of course, a cornerstone in achieving that target. So, and we'll talk about the crises later, because you know every crisis has an impact on the labor market. So we are very busy, I can assure you. One of the key aspects is indeed also the people, and focusing on the people, both on the market, but also internally. Okay, now the question on what would I have become? Thinking back when I was young, and indeed it is again in the music, I would probably have very long hair, because I would be a rock drummer. I played, if you read my bio, I played on, the soap boxes, the Dash, the Dreft Ariel stuff from Procter & Gamble way back. And now occasionally play on Roland Electronics drum. So, modernization technology.
Okay. Super. Thank you so much for rock drummer Jan for that introduction. Let's go to La Bella Pisa. Paolo De Rosa. You come to us from the beautiful Italia. So, and tell us a little bit more about yourself, your role, and what was the dream of little Paolo?
Sure. Hi, Hendrik. Hi, Nils. So first of all, thank you for this. I'm very honored and pleased to be here today. So for the last 15 years, I've been building secure digital infrastructure, and since 2017, I've been working for the Italian government at the presidency of the Council of Ministers, first as a cloud expert and then as Chief Technology Officer. What we do, we basically support and advise the central government and the policymakers about IT and new technology. So we support them to make strategy and especially how to drive the digital transformation in a government environment. So for the central and local administration, we have many of them. And we have also a variable number of ministries from 23, 26. In the past, we reached 32 ministry. At the same time, we also build and manage multi-disciplinary teams dedicated to develop a digital platform and providing, digital platform for many things. So we coordinate stuff, based project that should be realized in the central and local administration. And the third thing, we monitor the execution of what we designed in the first stage. Said in other words, using a metaphor, I would say that politics usually like driving at night without lights, and what we do is trying to bring them some light to make them more comfortable driving in such condition. Then what I'm thinking to do when I was young, at least when I was a boy, most probably I would have been a scientist or researcher, because I really love trying to understand how reality works. So I would have been, I don't know, a physicist or an economist, because are the two subjects I like most. Because I'm a very curious person, and since I was young, I constantly compulsively collect information, trying to recognize patterns. So that's my my sort of how to say activity.
Okay, super, Paolo. Niels, I'm going to hand it over to you for now, but maybe you could start with what was your dream when you were still 15 years or 20 years old? What was Niels von Stad's big dream?
Probably I wanted to pursue filmmaking. So but behind the camera, wanted to be behind the camera, and so I that was one of my degrees. I studied filmmaking in that,
Okay.
but it was a little too unstable for me as a career, and now that's what I study, is how leaders navigate that instability. Which actually leads me to the first question I'd like to propose to the finalists. How is the crisis affecting your organization? And there's many to choose from. Is there one in particular that's particularly impactful? And if so, can you give us a sense of how it's affecting your group, your organization? Who wants to start?
Me? I can start, because probably each of these crises affected our organization, but the most, the water supply and wastewater sector, which I represent, is most strongly affected by the energy crisis. This is because water and wastewater treatment processes are very, very energy consuming. I counted it even yesterday, and now 60% of our variable cost is cost of energy. So only in the last 12 months, the average purchase cost of electricity increased by 60%, and gas even more than 100%. So in addition, high energy cost affected our suppliers of chemicals, which we use in our production processes. This resulted in an increase in material prices much more above inflation. So, on the other hand, the biggest challenge is the fact that since 2018, we have had a water tariffs regulator in Poland, which announced that tariffs for water and sewage collection are to remain on the same level in the future. So probably till next elections. So on the one hand, we have a huge increase in cost and inflation, reaching 20% in Poland right now, last month. And on the other hand, water prices have remained unchanged. This makes managing our business much more difficult than during previous crises.
That's amazing. Thank you. Who else can share how and which crises and how is it affecting your organization?
Shall I continue?
Sure, Lawrence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jon, he raised his hand. I just pushed the button, microphone. Well, first I want to.
I won't comment on that, Lawrence. But no.
First, I want to make a remark, because I think we call everything a crisis, but I think it is good to understand that we are living in a VUCA world already for maybe tens of years already. So I don't want to call everything a crisis. We in the Netherlands have also some specific crises on housing, for instance, on migration, nitrogen. Maybe that has to do with the environmental issue. So, and these are big issues, but I wouldn't say these are all crises. And some of these crises you mentioned also, they're connected, and they're also inflicted by ourselves, like the geopolitical situation. I wouldn't say there is a lack of energy, but we have high energy price because of the sanctions and related to the war in Ukraine. So that's the first thing. But if I look at my own environment, my own business, so to say, I think two of them are really affecting my operation. First is the IT talent, because we have really a talent, I would say, crisis. We have 3,000 vacancies in IT only at central government level, which is huge for us. So we have a big problem. It's not only us, but it's also the suppliers. And the other one, I think it's related to what Piotr said. It's related to the energy prices, because we have huge floor spaces still not being used, because as an effect of the COVID, the population and our workers, they are going to the office, but it's at most 40% which is being used. So we try to get rid of floor space. But if the energy prices are getting high and stay high, then maybe people want to go into the office instead of staying at home because they need to pay their own energy bill. The same is on the cost level. So the costs of our IT operations, the cost of our IT suppliers are raising. We all know some examples like Oracle. They have a huge inflation on their costs as well. So that has an effect on the total cost we spend on IT. I think that's how it affects but in general, of course, I think the perception of the people and also the perception of many of our employees is that we live in very, very uncertain times, and that's the one crisis comes after another. So I think that maybe that's an overarching crisis, that we believe that we are in a constant state of crisis. If I look at the COVID period, and we have 2 years of also crisis, not only the medical side, but also the social side and economical side of it. We were in constant, high alert state, so to say, but you can't stay on high alert for 2 years. It's simply not possible. So it is more or less that we enter, I think, a new normal, and I wouldn't say that is all a crisis. There are some elements of crisis, which makes that we need to respond in a different way to this. And that's what I say. It's not only that we need a vision, we need to understand the situation, but also we need to be clear on what we can influence and what we can't influence. And then I would say for my organization and the CEO Council I'm leading, it is that we need to be agile. We need to be adaptable to this situation and not to be fixed in one process that we try to influence, but all around us the world is changing. So that would be the two biggest are the talent war and the energy or energy related crisis. Yeah,
that's great. Jan, you wanted to add?
Well, I mean, I agree partially with Laurens. Of course, there is a sequence of crises, one after the other. However, I do feel that they impact more and more the people in their wallets and in their well-being. So labor, having a job, I would consider it as one of the three pillars of a healthy person: its family, its health, and its work. Labor, being socially in a social environment where labor is important. If I look at the crises, and I have some numbers here. After COVID, which was a crisis with a temporary shock effect on the labor market, but we recovered almost completely in Europe. We're back to the pre-COVID numbers. The next one was Ukraine, and Ukraine is a specific crisis in that sense, and I have Belgian numbers. We'll probably end up with about 83,000 Ukrainians in Belgium by end of the year. And most of them are female, 75%. And the key really is because the war, it looks like it's going to take longer than we all expected a few months ago. Integration, in the society is for these people really labor is important. And that's our first, let's say, big action that we need to take as VDAB, as a public employment service. Now consider this, we talk about, the war for talent or the dance on the floor, to seduce people to work for us. But the interesting part is that as we look at the numbers, we all expect a recession more or less second half of next year. The planning office of Belgium indicates that we only will have a growth of 0.05%. Other countries have similar numbers. So today we fight for people, but probably those same companies will have to lay off people, maybe second half of next year. So this is a big dilemma, because today, numbers here, USA, 11 million vacancies. It's a record high since 69. Most vacancies ever. Germany, 850,000 vacancies. The friction on the market, meaning the number of unemployed people versus the number of vacancies, has never been so high, meaning there's not enough people. We fight for people to get them on. But then when I'm in events, I hear people saying, well, next year will be tough. Yeah, we're going to have to reduce costs. I'm going to have to let go my consultants, my external people, etc., etc. This, I think, is contradictory. Today we fight for these people, The Great Resignation in the US is basically saying we pay more and more for those people, but if we're not smart, we'll let them go next year or in 2024. So I would argue, and I would plead for all the executives that are here, think twice before you start, downscaling in your people force, because you might need them in 24, 25, because it will pick up, and digital will be the new norm. If you let them go now, you're going to have to pay more money back in 2 years, because that's what our statistics say.
Raul? Raul, you're on mute.
You need to unmute at the bottom of your screen, Raul, so that we can hear you in the StreamYard. You need to unmute yourself. And maybe in the meantime, while Raul finds the unmute button, we can go to Paulo. Paulo, I muted you as well. Yeah. Fine. Good.
Okay, so thank you. I very much agree on what has been said, especially with Laurent, because all these crises are very linked to each other, and especially in the government environment, you can see all of them. I can just add another example, that is with the Ukraine. We have in cyber, we have seen a lot of activity increasing in these weeks on all our companies and also public administration. But two of them are very, are the most visible, especially the cost for labor and the cost in general for public administration. So the inflation is really, really affecting how public administration are going to buy and manage their own budget. Just to give you an example, we have recorded an increase of IT costs between the 10 and 20% already, where obviously in some is the inflation, but we have seen someone also some speculation on that, and it's something to take into account. And the other one I think is the most important is the shortage of talent of people in general. That in Italy is particularly relevant. We have a very dramatic situation, I would say, on real wages that are very low, and in the last 30 years they have fallen of 2.9%. Since the 90s. So this is really, really impossible to get people with IT skills in the government to work here and keep working during such kind of storm. And so just to give you the spotlight where what we are facing is having people in the public administration to work on all the topics, on all the crises.
Okay, thank you, Paulo.
We've got Raul back.
Yes, I'm here. I see the current crisis as an opportunity to strengthen the digital sector, which has a certain independence from raw materials. We don't need a continuous supply of raw materials to produce. So a supply crisis does not affect us directly as other sectors. On the other hand, we don't have a high dependence of energy that could lead the cost increase. That is a cost from the business, not for the digital sector. But we are starting to notice a talent crisis. All the professional markets are sized to respond to the usual businesses and to novel needs. But these notable increases in business end up being accompanied in the same proportion by the incorporation of new professionals, which is causing the same professional to rotate in different companies. But in turn, this could be advantages from Andalusia. Our climate, our infrastructures, our competitive costs make our region capable of attracting international talent. From here, they can work from any part of the world, and it's our obligation to take advantages of this opportunity. So we try to approach this opportunity, and we are going to collaborate with leading companies in the sector that not only for locating the headquarters here in our region, but also they are locomotives for the training of professionals, the generation of employment, and the economic growth.
Okay. So if I look at what you all said, talent is absolutely on top. So finding the right people to work in your ministries, organizations, and so on is a big challenge. So can we solve that to a certain extent with technology? So let's maybe address a technology aspect of this. Can we automate some parts of this work? Can we implement RPA? Can we implement low code, no code? How do you look at that? What percentage of this talent problem can we solve with technology? Because Raul, I know that you've set up an RPA center, so you must be convinced that this is a way, one of the ways forward, right?
Yes, we are using the RPA technology, and the first of all we did was to try to convince of the businesses that this is a very important IT solution that we are going that don't substitute the traditional businesses. We try to get them compliance of this technology because the first we did was to create a department to manage the chain, because it's important the business can understand we are technical partners, and now we are going not to substitute them. No, so we are very proud of them. We create a methodology that we are expanding in of the organization.
Okay. So what's the other panelists here? What's the vision, the feeling around from these new type of tools, Lawrence?
Well, yeah, I'd like to. I think I'm a strong believer in automation, both in the IT services. We have a lot of shared services center, and also RPA. We have pilots running with RPA. So I think it may be a part of a solution, more to say. It won't solve the whole war on talent, because it's also a mismatch. I think reacting also to what Jan said, it's not only the numbers, but you can have a lot of people available who are unemployed, but they are not the people who can fill the vacancies. You need to retrain, to re-educate, and I would say especially automation, because we have a lot of application management people still in the Netherlands, people who are not only managing but also developing applications. So if we can automate more on the application management and the IT services, but also the use of cloud, and we are a bit reluctant with cloud. I only published a cloud policy, and we sent it to Parliament August this year. So we're now making steps in the future. That will also help us in, well, freeing up people who we can train, re-educate, and become, well, do different jobs within IT, but become more maybe on the data side or algorithms instead of doing the old stuff, IT management work.
Jan, you look a little bit skeptical.
No. Of course, technology can help, but I mean, if you talk about RPA and low code, also those people you need to find, of course, in the first place, because they're also in high demand. And you can use those technologies to automate business processes and certain, I mean, create efficiency and speed to delivery, etc. I will agree with that. But the key point is, of course, is that digitalization requires a set of skills which are in high demand and low offer, and that will not go away probably for the next 5-7 years. So the key now is to think as an organization, how can I get those people and keep them? Yeah, and we call that in VDAB, we call it inclusive talent management. We spent significant money in order to really recruit people and to also keep them. And when I talk about people, I do not make a difference between if those people are on the payroll or external or freelancers or whatever. They're all people. And they all contribute to the VDAB mission. And I get a bit annoyed when I hear people saying, we're first going to remove our consultants, which might be, a certain logic, but I would argue it's an old logic, because those people also contribute. And by the way, I'm talking in Belgium, where I have the numbers, the IT market is becoming a freelance market. So more and more people in the IT sector will be freelancers. So if your strategy is to say, well, we treat them differently because they're external, you probably have the wrong strategy. So we say inclusive talent management, everybody the same, and we, nurture, love these people, and we want them to stay. My final point is, because I am now in a government and I know how things work in the private sector, because there the cost pressure is, of course, higher, and it might be more tough to safeguard those digital people. In government, when there is a crisis, you get more money to solve the crisis, typically, which is very intuitive. So I indeed get more money to solve the crisis. So I have, you could argue, well, you can talk easily, but I would challenge also in the private sector, think twice, think 3 times before you start removing digital skilled people. I would really, really love you to do that. Think very hard. Challenge your CEO. There might be other systems like cash management, like, managing your procurement, other things where you can generate cash in order to, manage your balance sheet and your P&L.
Okay, Niels?
I was going to ask Paolo actually for his take on this.
Yeah, so I also a strong believer in automation. So my job has been all the time trying to automate everything, but you can automate stuff that are repetitive. And then now with the AI, with all the technology we have, we can improve this as automation, but this can improve our efficiency on doing job. But at the end of the day, you still need, technology, and doing this job is about people, about having people that are able to plan, to design, to understand data, to work on data, to do analysis. And all those high-level skills are really missing right now. So the problem is not, we don't need thousands of people doing this job. We need enough people with the right skills. And this is the main issue that is not going to be solved easily in the short time. And this has a huge impact in education and the university, and also in the government itself, because we need to find a way to share knowledge and prove other people to get on board on this complex, all the complexity we have to drive. And the other side of the coin is that you need not just to understand the complexity, but to reduce it, to manage it, because otherwise all the complexity we have in the government cannot be managed. And it's not even possible to think that we are going to, for example, manage thousands of administration doing the same thing just once, and without having the ability to simplify stuff. So the issue is not easy to solve in the short time.
And are these crises adding complexity in the sense of creating even more challenges to, for example, addressing the talent issues that you all highlighted? Are your budgets being affected from an IT budget point of view? Are they being affected, for example, by these crises? Maybe either directly, where there's pressures to reduce the budget, or indirectly because the costs of providing technology are going up due to supply chain and energy factors. Is that also part of the challenge that you're facing now?
Absolutely. It's part of the challenge. I would say that right now it's mainly indirect, because we've seen increasing costs, but also at the same time we need to face a way to share, to have 2 new tools to onboard people, so the technology there can be can help us on that. So sorry, can you repeat the question? It got distracted.
It's really more, is an additional complicating factor the fact that these crises that we started off with listing are affecting your budgets?
Yes, sorry. No, the budget is not going to be affected in direct way because, for example, today we are dealing mainly with the extra resources that we got through the National Recovery and Resilience Plan, for example, that was planned to support the member states of the union to recover the gap or the technological debt we accumulated during the pandemic, for example. And then.
Very interesting, Paolo. Sorry to interrupt, but so I think we have some very, very different situations here, right? Where some organizations have no budget problems, even seeing the budget increase. Piotr, if I look at you, I mean, if your energy inflation is 20%, your energy doubles in price, your raw materials double in price, and your tariffs stay the same. So as a CFO, that must be a nightmare. How do you solve that? I mean, you keep the same money in, but you need to spend so much more. So what's your magic trick to manage that?
So indeed, it is a huge challenge, but we mentioned about migration crisis from Ukraine, and for us is a chance because in Wrocław we have over 100,000 new citizens right now. Wow. So we can't change the level of tariffs, but we have a new customers. Yes, so our sales was increased, but this is the proof that in each crisis there is a chance. Yes, so this is one thing, and the second thing, I am confident about the development and of existing and new tools which we manage. That's because over the last few years we have developed, I think, a quite unique ecosystem for the development of innovations and new IT tools. So maybe I will say how it's working. We start with describing, well, this is a standard procedure, yes? We start with describing our needs and what we want to achieve using a new technology or system. On the next step, we look for a commercial partner with which we can develop a solution together. We give our know-how, specific know-how, and they provide developers. And we share copyrights between us, our company and this company. When we finish solution, then we commercialize our solutions jointly. Our software is not only for us, but it can support the entire water sector. However, we are first customer who gives credibility to a developed solution. So we already have 4 examples of successful cooperation, and over, like a public company, we sold over 20 licenses for our products, for our IT products, which we developed and created jointly. This method allows us to deliver IT tools very efficiently and cost effectively. Of course, not all, but if we develop something new. This is more about CapEx than OpEx. But however, I have to revise the cost of cloud computing, which we use for advanced analytics. A strong position of dollar and rapid increase in data volume resulted in a faster increase in cost as we initially planned. So we will try to optimize the data processing methods to reduce cost, or we will consider the scenario of using of our infrastructure and open source tools for the most expensive and advanced analysis.
Okay, super. Lawrence, I wanted to ask you a special question, because what's interesting in your situation, what is it on a monthly basis? You talk with the 16 most important CIOs in the Dutch government. So you have like the perfect view of what's going on in all different ministries and other organizations in the Netherlands. If you talk to these people, what is changing in their priorities? Do you see important changes that are happening now based on everything that's going on, or is it just business as usual?
Well, it's certainly not business as usual. I think, last year we drafted an IT strategy on a generic level. So we with all the CIOs. Actually, there are 18, so we have 12 ministry CIOs, but also 6 big executional organizations like defense, like police, like tech services, and so on. So these are the common topics we all perceive on the skills, on the IT talent, also on the problematic legacy. We have a lot of legacy in the Netherlands, which is would cost billions to solve. But what I see that there are really differences now between the ministries. For instance, defense, they have a lot more money. You can't spend it because of the war in Ukraine. Well, also Parliament and politics, they get awake, and then they throw money into defense, which is billions. On the other side, we expect that there will be cost cuttings in the near future. We don't have it yet. It's a bit like, I think it was Paulo who said it, if there's a crisis, then we have much more budget. We had big support programs during COVID in the Netherlands. So we are still, well, benefiting from this. But we expect there will be cost cutting in the near future because of a recession coming up. So there are organizations who are already preparing for these new situations, and others are still, they have much more money and they don't find projects to spend it. And that's, so I think that's really interesting. And so I would say money is not the problem at this stage in the Netherlands. It's really the problem of the right people, the right talent, not only on our own sides, but also the suppliers. I know many suppliers who have so good business now, they don't offer us propositions in the government because we have these procedures, these tender processes, and they can easily have a win in the private sector and much more difficult to win a tender in the public sector. So they simply don't offer. They don't put in a proposition. And so I would say it's more on this issue that we are facing problems, and than on the budget side. But there are differences. The UWV, which is the Employment Service and Netherlands, which is also a big organization, they have well, big programs on lifetime education, for instance, and implementing this into all the citizens. But they also have still a huge issue on legacy. And if you ask me what is one of the other priorities, it's really on the digital resilience and on the cyber. We have a lot of problems. We have a lot of attacks. We are investing a lot of money into not only the technology side of it and the detection and recovery and so on, but also in sharing information, not only with us, but also with European partners. And that's, so we want to keep on the lights. We want to stay safe and secure. And this is something which costs money, but it is also about finding the right people and the talent. So it's a mixed image, I would say.
Very, very mixed. Jan, if we could come back to you. I mean, we need to help our organizations, but in the end, we need to help the society to become to overcome this crisis, to manage the crisis, and so on. And I know at VDAB you changed your politic, your strategy dramatically. Where before you were helping the unemployed, and now you want to help everybody who's in the society and help them find a better job. And of course, I mean, the more people are employed, the better for everybody. So can you talk a little bit about that strategy and how IT plays a role in that?
Yeah, Hendrik. We're working now, let's say, more or less 3 years on a strategy where we say we need to work with every citizen in Flanders, which is 4 or 5 million people. Historically, we worked only with the unemployed. And the whole idea behind that is that with, and I think Lauren said it, with the lifelong learning and with, you know, the exponential change almost in how jobs evolve. Jobs come and go. New jobs, which we didn't know of 5 years ago, are now in high demand. It means that we have to start managing careers rather than just unemployed people. Because if you're unemployed, we're actually too late. We failed. We have to avoid that you become unemployed. And that's quite a mind shift, because that means that we have to start working with every citizen and say, you know, think about your career. Think about what is your next step. Because, and I always use the example of truck driver. A truck driver, if I'm 20 years and I think I can drive my whole life with a truck, well, I will be wrong, because the trucks will be autonomous driving in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. So we have to know that and become predictive in the way we help these people or help the citizen, so that, you know, they move from one career step to another. And we call it citizens in transition. You're not like working and unemployed. No, you're in constant transition within jobs. And that means lifelong learning, where we offer tools to help you understand, okay, what can you learn? What is the, in which competencies can you get better? And so the whole idea is that by doing that, we avoid that people fall in the trap, as a matter of speaking, of becoming unemployed. So there is a predictivity, and we have quite an extensive battery of tools based on artificial intelligence and machine learning, which we deploy. And we have a tool called Job Reach, which really basically says to an individual who, you know, uploads his curriculum vitae, okay, this is the jobs you can do, and with competence enlargement, with more competencies and training, you can increase your job reach. And suddenly other jobs become available for you as a person. So that is the strategic, really fundamental shift that we embark upon in VDAB.
Okay, super. We've got 8 minutes left for this panel. Only Niels goes very fast again. So I would like everybody to take out a crystal ball again and tell us, well, how do you see the near future? I mean, in government, with what's going on right now, and maybe you can touch a bit on leadership as well. What kind of leadership do we need today and in the future to manage all of this? Raoul, you want to maybe go first?
Okay, I am a very optimist. I think we are still suffering the COVID consequences. The high prices still are produced by the lack of the supply from the producers' industries. As a result of confinement, the demand is greater nowadays. And also the hard measures decided, for example, in China to stop COVID, some of the reasons that explain how rates of inflation has increased so much. And also drove an important increment of the energy prices. Also the Ukrainian invasion by Russia produced the current moment we live now. So 2023 will be a year with no economic growth because the demand will go down, but that will permit the industry will be able to supply without the current delays we have now. And 2025, I think will be a year with stabilizing prices and then with economic growth again. So the IT sector will live very important moments that it must take advantages of very well to become a structural industry in all markets after this period of financial aid. Either we have really made a structural change in our economy, or if not, the European economic model may suffer the consequences of the lack of skilled labor and the productive improvement of emerging countries. So it's important opportunity, the unique, I think. So we have to use correctly the extra financial we receive from Next Generation funds. So if we can do correctly, we max success. If not, maybe the other countries we forward us.
Okay. Thank you so much, Raoul. Paolo, you want to give your vision on how do you see the future and maybe specifically in Italy? How is Italy going? I mean, and you have the extra challenge of political instability and one political crisis after the other as well. But please tell us more about your vision.
Yeah. So since last week we have a new government. So that's a good news. Very good news. But unfortunately, there is no longer a Minister of Innovation and Digital Transformation. That and to be honest, from my perspective, is a huge step backwards in the process of the digital transformation of the country. But I'm sure that the new government will have a plan for this. That will find a new way to to manage this this situation. I mean, the digital transformation. But I do not wish to be catastrophic, but we cannot hide behind a finger. We will have 2 years, two very hard years ahead of us, both in terms of economic recession and generally of global instability. The outcomes of which are still uncertain and do not allow, at least me, to represent a possible settlement in the short term. But however, I'm more optimistic when we refer to the people. Especially, I don't want to say a cliche, but Italy as performance usually performs better during crises instead of standard times, and we have seen this during the pandemic. So especially young people have a very impressive way. They answer in an impressive way, react in an impressive way. Well, all the restriction, all the needed during the pandemic. So I believe that we will have surprises from people, because it's where we need to foster better answer, but response to the crisis we will see in the next year. Okay. So I expect there to have very, very big surprise how people will react to all these crises. I think few of them are already popping up, especially in the war in the war in Ukraine and what is happening also in the economic.
Super, thank you so much, Paolo. Piotr, if we can have your crystal ball readings, what do you see?
Okay, I think that we are not likely to avoid a recession, but I treat it as a natural state that comes back from time to time. From the management point of view, I think the lessons that we took during 2008 financial crisis will be crucial. I expect that we will continue to invest in innovation and optimization of the existing businesses, but it's probably that we don't invest in the expansion of the existing production capacities, and this process probably will slow down. On the other hand, the process of deglobalisation and relocation of production back to Europe may have a positive effect of our economy. And I'd like to say one sentence about the skills which we will need. So personally, I believe that we should focus on being brave and developing the ability to build a vision and gathering teams around it. Courage will be needed in making the tough decisions that always happen during crises. On the other hand, the vision will allow to unite a team around it and reduce the anxiety, which always is in our teams during crisis.
Okay. Thank you so much, Piotr, Lawrence, and then Jan, and then we are going to need to wrap up. Lawrence, what does your crystal ball say?
Well, yeah, my view on the world. It's a bit similar to what others I think are stating. I expect, and that's also maybe a self-fulfilling prophecy, there will be a recession. We don't know how big, how long, but there will be layoffs, and these layoffs could be an opportunity to retrain and re-educate people to become IT. That's the chance I see. The energy, that's very much depending on the sanctions and on the war in Ukraine. So I don't know if that's how long that will. It could be like in Afghanistan or the long conflicts. But of course, I hope it won't last that long, and and it won't be the same again as before. It will be an uncertain world. And I think we maybe need to get used to a less growth. We are addicted to growth in any respect. That's the thing that drives not only prosperity, but also a moderate inflation. And maybe we need to get used to an economy that doesn't grow that fast, or even at close to zero. I also expect that there will be more focus on sovereignty. So you see that already, like these this globalization, which is cutting back. So we will be more local. There will be more stockpiling. There will be more locations, so we won't be dependent on from one side or from one country. Also alternatives, I think it was already mentioned, to raw materials, and maybe 3D printing will be on the rise. So it will be different, and I think one of the overarching themes is it will be more polarized. That's what I see. So there will be people who can afford these energy increased prices, but there will be also and there will be people who are really IT enabled and everything digital. But there will also be people who maybe will.
Oh, and then
Yeah. So and what does it mean from a leadership perspective? I think we need to face reality as it is. We need to stay connected with our people, with our citizens. But my personal wish would keep the true north in sight and not be distracted too much from the day-to-day, well, smaller or bigger crisis, because that makes the digital transformation of society possible.
Okay, thank you for that, Laurens. Jan.
Okay, very shortly, everything which is said is obviously correct. The key is there is a lot of uncertainty. Geopolitics, who knows? It's in the head of a few individuals, a handful of individuals who will have potentially a great impact on the world and on society. So I'm not going to comment on that. We'll see what happens. But let me just add one comment, and let's try to look at the positive side. If you see how society is responding, it's difficult, but we are responding. I've worked 10 years in the energy sector before I took the job which I have now. But with the crisis of energy, we're now doing, we're accelerating, let's say in 2 to 3 years, which otherwise would have taken 15 years. So if you talk about climate impact, etc., what we're doing now during the crisis is really a very, long term will have positive impacts. The last thing is I do believe very strongly in the importance of data, and using of data to solve problems of really human problems, world problems. I mean, data can help us there. And then my final comment on leadership. My son and my daughter, they do not talk anymore about a digital camera. So I would argue, why do we talk about digital leaders? It's going to be leaders with digital skills. You're going to have them, everyone. So digital leadership for me is something strange. It's leaders with digital skills. And of course, we're going to need them. And we're privileged because we're kind of ahead. We have been grown up a bit in the digital world. And we have to combine that knowledge and that skill set and competency sets with what each leader should be, which is inspiring, painting the picture, be bold, brave, humble, love your people. And I think we have great leaders. So that's my final comment on that one.
Okay, nice way to end this panel discussion. Super interesting. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jan, Laurens, Paolo, Piotr, and Raul, and also Niels for helping me to moderate that. We're going to throw you out of the screen now, and we're going to announce who of you will be the winner of the Digital Leader of the Year award. So let me add this slide here. There we go. So, Niels, we have 5 very fine finalists for the Government European Digital Leader of the Year award.
And I have to say, once again, these 5 are the reason why we include this category in the first place. The public sector has so many amazingly accomplished digital leaders that can serve as role models for all sectors. And once again, this year's group that you have here is proof of that. There is fantastic and important digital leadership going on in the public sector. And I'm so glad that we showcase them like we did this year.
Okay, super. And so first we're going to announce the runner-up. Again, it was the jury has voted. It was close again. And
yes.
So that's why we will definitely mention the runner-up, and then we will announce the winner. And so the runner-up, who has been very instrumental in making a big transformation in his organization and is very, very data-driven and does a great job. So congratulations, Jan Dobeny, to be the runner-up of the European Digital Leader of the Year in the government sector. And so without further ado, we are going to announce the winner. And the winner of the European Digital Leader of the Year award in the government category is Laurens Visser of the Dutch Central Government. Niels, tell us, why has Laurens won this award?
Again, the jury really highlighted a whole variety of aspects for why they voted and allocated so many points to Laurens. I'll just highlight two aspects. One is his leadership style and how he focuses on and is focused on really being a connector of people by listening. And I think that's a critical aspect of leadership going forward and helps explain his effectiveness. Also, transparency. He really focused on introducing greater transparency across a variety of aspects of the Dutch central government. And that's how he's succeeded in building trust of the citizens in the government. And this, in an increasingly polarized world, is going to be essential for going forward. So those are just a selection of some of his accomplishments.
Laurens, if you unmute yourself, please tell us a little bit what goes through you right now, but more importantly, how do you look at this award?
Well, I must say, I didn't expect it, of course, because it's a very complicated job, of course, and sometimes I feel I'm not really accomplishing things. It goes slowly, and I need a lot of pollering, so I need a lot of meetings. But I'm really honored to be. So thank you a lot, and especially between these other finalists, and I see they're very, very accomplished. They are doing a great job, and so I'm really honored. And I see it as a recognition, not only for myself, personal, but also to the profession and the difficult roles we have as CIOs, as CDOs, as CTOs, as digital leaders. So yeah, I'm really thrilled. So thanks a lot.
Okay.
Really.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Congratulations, Laurens, to you and your team, of course, of the great work that you've done and the strategy that you're putting in place now for the complete Dutch government, together with your 18 colleagues. And so we look forward to getting all the winners together in next year. After that, we have also awarded the winners in B2B and B2C in February. So congratulations, Laurens, and see you soon. And so with that, we have come almost to the end of the conference of today. I just want to thank Niels for being